am I? Okay, good. Let's go over here. All right. Couldn't do slideshow. From the beginning. All right, and then share screen. This should come over here. Here we go. Trouble with my monitors here. Okay, I'm going to share screen 2. Share. All right. Do you all see Hermetic medical astrology? Yes. Thumbs up if you do, or say so. Here we go. Okay. All right. I'm ready to go. This week, we're going to talk about Uranus. And to prepare for this, I did a lot of research. I spent many, many hours, but it's not going to end up being many, many hours of talking, right? So we might have a little short class tonight, or we can expand our discussion of different topics. But we have what I notice. We have our constants from the Church of Light research done in the 20th century, and you know, the people used to have to cast the horoscopes by hand, you know, using logarithms, the way we did when we started in the 60s and 70s. And I'm finding certain things that are showing up, especially having to do with Uranus, that they didn't have that many constants for Uranus. Then, and I'm finding them now, and I wonder to what extent it has to do with astronomical tables from the 1930s and 40s, you know, when they were doing some of this work, or I don't know what it would be. But so this is going to theme. I'm going to do. I'll do 3 conditions tonight: epilepsy and seizures, and then Parkinson's disease. I don't think we had research into Parkinson's in the 20th century. And then also the role of Uranus in heart attacks. And I did some more in-depth research than I usually do, specifically on Uranus in these conditions. And so I'm going to present some of that tonight. One of the things I've been having discussions, email discussions with Deborah about research, and what's going on here? My slide doesn't seem to want to change. There we go. Okay. And I want to talk, this has come up. We see this pattern in our constants, the Church of Light reports, my own reports, where it says, well, you know, this constant is usually there. Right, this aspect is usually there, and sometimes we get statistics like, oh, it was there 96% of the time, or 93% of the time, and when you can be tempted to say, well, okay, something must be off, because if it's reality, it would be 100% of the time. But you know, reality is never 100% of the time, because it's going through our cognitive filter, right? So, but one thing I ask, if I have a chart, 10 charts in a row seem to follow a pattern, and then another one doesn't. I want to ask myself, well, what's going on with that now? Well, is that just an outlier? You know, because you can, let's say if you flip a coin, you know, 5 times, you're often going to get 2 heads and 3 tails, or 3 heads and 2 tails, and not uncommonly, you'll get 4 heads and 1 tail, or 4 tails and 1 head, but not too often that you're going to get 5 in a row of the same thing. But it does happen, right? So if you're doing something and you get something like that, like 5 heads in a row or 5 tails in a row, you say, that must be a mistake. I'm going to exclude that data. There's a tendency to do that. So when I do this kind of research, it's almost like you need to have a samurai kind of discipline, no, I'm going to take the data as it is. I'm not going to try to taper it to fit my philosophy or anything like that. On the other hand, and this is standard in medical research, at the end of a trial, they'll have a section of a report, they'll have a section say, these are the possible sources of error, right? Right, this is why this data looks good, but these are why it might not be true, so this is considered a part of scientific critique. So I ask myself sometimes when if I'm looking at the charts, I said, well, are these birth times really accurate? If you think about time with our modern astrology, we need to have birth times accurate to within a minute or two in order to do secondary progressions, right? 4 minutes off on a birth time and all your secondary progressions of the midheaven and the ascendant are a year off, right? So it has to be pretty precise. Go back 100 years or 200 years. How good were people at measuring times to the minute in every village and town? Or for the past 2,000 years, people kept time with sundials. You don't do sundials to the minute, right? You might be able to do it to the half hour or something like that. So the farther you go back in time, the idea of a to the minute birth time is impossible until the modern mechanical clocks would be the first time that was even possible. So then we have well, what is the process? The event of birth is a pretty dramatic thing. It's pretty exciting. Everybody running around here. It's the baby breathing, and it's a big, all kinds of energy flying around there. And a lot of times there are a lot of cool heads who says, let's see, that baby crowned and took its first breath at exactly 7:32. There aren't many people around there doing that, right? So I'm going to explain why in modern medical practice, there are more people around doing that. So you're more likely to get maybe more likely to get a precise to the minute birth time in the last 20 to 40 years. But I'll show you the problem here is the tendency is, oh, the baby, say it was 9:08. The person said, oh, the baby was born at 9. Born around 9. So 9 goes in the medical record, 9 goes on the legal record, 9 goes on the birth chart. And then you have in hand a birth certificate that says 9, and you're thinking, ooh, this is a birth certificate time. I can count on this. So for our research, for the most of the charts I get here of known diseases, I'm getting these from the Astro Data Bank, right? I got a number of other ones from Gauguin's book of charts of famous people, where he relied on birth certificate times also. So here is, whoops, whoa, wait a minute. I had, okay, I have to find, for some reason, I have the wrong slideshow up here. Let's see here. Nope. Okay. Here, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll be right back here with something there. Yeah. Let's close this. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Slideshow. Okay, so this is the information I want to show, and here is well, I'm sorry. This is I'm going to try one more time to get the right slideshow up here, but there's a problem with what we have here. There you go. Let me see. Last. Oh. Okay, we'll just do this. This is a little imperfect, but I can make the point. Okay. From time immemorial, it was hard to say what a birth time was to the minute. And so for our secondary progressions, for determining the ascendant, for determining house positions, right? It's pretty important to have more accurate birth times. So modern astrologers, we've come to trust birth certificate times. And I just like to point out, it was very common in the 20th century not to write down a precise birth certificate time. People would say, oh, the person was born around 9, the person was born at 9:15, or something like that. We have a process that happens in hospitals anyway today. There's something called the Apgar score, APGAR. A is activity, pulse, grimace, appearance, and respiration, right? And this is sometimes, the newborn is there. The newborn, by the way, these scores are done at 1 minute and at 5 minutes after birth. Baby takes their first breath, and they're examining them, and they're looking for these at 1 minute. They look now, is the baby, does have flexed arms and legs? Does the baby have a pulse, below 100 beats a minute? Does the baby, if you stimulate, if you poke the baby, do they grimace? Right? It seems a pretty crude way of judging the health of a newborn. And the appearance, the skin color, is the skin color pink or?
Could you show that slide of the Apgar?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go.
I saw that you had it. So
yeah, there it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I had somewhere, I have this thing properly formatted. I just can't find it at the moment. I apologize for that. This is the Apgar score. They have they just look at the baby. Is the baby active? At 1 minute, they look at 1 minute and 5 minutes. Are they active? Is the pulse over 100 beats a minute? Do they have a prompt response to stimulation? Right, you poke them and they grimace. And is the skin pink, not blue? And if they're crying, do they have a vigorous cry? Right, so rather than a wimpy little cry. So they score these very quickly by points. So if you have all of that, you get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 points, right? If you have none of it, you get 0 points. And over here, they're doing this, and they put this in your chart, right? They may look at the clock, they may put the birth time right in the chart, 7:36, right? Or somebody may start a stopwatch, right? Depending on the procedure in that place. So they and then they score it, and they say, well, if the Apgar score is 7 or over, it's considered a normal birth. They're probably not going to have to do an emergency intervention like intubate the baby or do artificial resuscitation or anything like that. And but the point is, they're doing this with all the births in a modern hospital. They're doing this. They're noting the first breath, and they're starting a clock ticking at that time. So since they've been doing this in our generation, I think you're more likely to get a birth time to the minute. Okay, this is the way I've been thinking for the past 25 years. I just got new information. This is I have there's a link here, and you'll get a copy of this. But some researchers at this link, it's an Ayurvedic site, I believe. They went to Astro Data Bank, okay, and we have the Rodden ratings. So a AA rating is it's taken from a birth certificate, and this is considered gold for research, right? Okay, here is he has here. This would be, see, there's 60 bars here. If they were recording exact birth times, the odds of somebody being born in exactly any one of the 60 minutes in an hour, right? There would be a random distribution. You'd be about equally likely to be at 9:14 as 9:00, right? Or 7:36 as 30, right? So this is there's 60 bars here. This is what a random distribution of birth times would look like. Okay. Now he took 13,000 charts with a AA Rodden rating, right? And he got this distribution. And this is not a random distribution, right? This is, the people are rounding the birth certificate times, right? You can see they're rounding them to, this is 5 minutes, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55 on the hour. And you can see there's not a random distribution. A random distribution, they'd be all up here flopping around like that, but some of them are very low. This is very high. You can see there's a tremendous tendency to round a birth certificate time to the nearest hour that's on the 00, right? Or to the nearest half hour, right? Or to the nearest 15 minutes. And even down here in 5-minute increments, you're about, if let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are equally likely to have these numbers rounded up to the nearest 5 as you are to have them accurate there. So this, I'm running into this in how reliable is my data. This is going to make a difference on progressions, on secondary progressions. So and so in some of my work, you want to see, is there a progressed aspect to the ascendant, for instance, for medical purposes. So this can affect that. Okay, well, I wanted to start with that. I have a little more discussion of that. But, let me go over to the Uranus slideshow here. And I will share again. Going to share. All right. Does everybody have the slideshow? I hope. Okay. Here we go. Well, so here's an overview. What we're going to talk about. We'll have Uranus as a new constant in heart attacks. This wasn't listed by the Church of Light in the 20th century as a constant for heart attack. So we have the idea that heart attack is a sudden event, and it also involves spasm of the arterial muscles, sudden spasm, and which is, we would characterize that as a Uranian type thing. I explored that. Uranus and epilepsy and seizure disorder. And we also, I've found in here, looking at this, we also find Neptune as a constant there. Uranus and Parkinson's. I don't think the church investigated Parkinson's in the 20th century. And then here, Zane has suggested paralysis and also appendicitis as involved with Uranus. So here, we have the rulership. Yeah, just 1 minute. If there's, okay. The rulership, Uranus rules with Mercury, it rules the nervous system, right? So we're going to expect with nervous conditions, and especially once involving anything sudden or anything with tremors, we're going to expect that Uranus might be involved with that. He says the nervous system rulership along with Mercury. Okay, we do have in physiology, we have bioelectrical forces. There are electrical currents that run through the body, not through the nervous system. They run through channels in the tissues. Okay, and then Zane says the electromagnetic body. Okay. In Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, they refer, a lot of what they talk about is allegorical. It's not materialistic, but they refer to wind, right? And that, and we've referred to this in some of the weather things. They talk about movement, but so in China, in Chinese medicine, if somebody has a palsy, has a shake like that, we'll say, well, that's wind, right? It looks like a leaf shaking in the wind, right? But what they mean, there's movement of energy through there, like wind is moving through and making things shake. So, okay. Qualities: abrupt, so erratic, sudden, disruptive. So this is where we might find these kind of medical conditions that are sudden, okay? And here, general astrology, the influence comes through human agency. I don't think that applies to medicine. Okay. Weather, very cold, sudden changes, dry, high velocity movement, bursts. Like so, you would think conditions moving like that. Okay. And then the pathology is hypersensitivity of the nervous system. Okay. Okay. And then Zane describes it as high tension, such as precedes cerebral hemorrhage or appendicitis. Now, in 1950, when he was writing, they didn't understand exactly what everything involved in cerebral hemorrhage or heart attack or any of those things. So I think here, involved in paralysis, arthritis, and nervous complaints, that's okay. They found that in their charts. Okay. Appendicitis here, the idea is appendicitis is usually abrupt. It's a sudden rupture of the appendix. Just having an inflamed appendix is probably does not have not come under Uranus, but having a ruptured appendix where the appendix bursts and dumps its contents into your peritoneal cavity. It's a very sudden event and very dramatic. It's probably involved in that. Therapeutics, electrical treatments, mesmerism. There here electrical treatments involving rhythmic vibration or oscillation. There's a thing used in physiotherapy. Let's say you have tense muscles or stiff muscles. It's called a sine wave interferential machine. And it's a machine that gives a mild electrical current. But you turn it so it gives it in smooth pulses. So they'll do, like you're having a problem with a muscle, they'll put it on one end of the muscle and the other end of the muscle. And then the machine will flex your muscle and then relax it, and flex it and then relax it, flex it and relax it. And then you can take tension and stuck things out of muscle systems with that. This would be these electrical treatments that would be involved. Uranus. I left this in here by mistake. I don't think we can associate any of these nutrients specifically with Uranus, according to what we understand of modern nutrition. Conversion, you encourage positive expressions. Example, electrotherapy for spasmodic complaints. That's what a spasmodic complaint. Oh, take a muscle relaxant drug. Okay, no, that has no resonance with the patient. If it's a Uranus thing, it's possible that an Uranian type of therapeutics might help it. Right? Okay. Here is I explore the idea of Uranus involvement in heart attacks. For this, the constants I was looking for heart attacks, these are the ones I measured. Leo, or its ruler, the sun. Jupiter. Jupiter is involved there. We spoke about this when we talked about Jupiter because it's the coronary arteries. The heart attack is an arterial disease. It's okay. And then Mars, the event of a heart attack is the atherosclerotic plaque ruptures and bleeds inside the vessel and you form a clot. And so rupture, bleeding, and clotting this all comes under Mars. Okay. And then Saturn, for the chronic nature of arterial disease. This is gradually decades-long erosion and destruction of the walls of the arteries that eventually leads to the event. And then I had a Uranus for the sudden nature, and that actually when the part of the event is there's a clot, and then the artery is obstructed, and one of the things the artery does is the artery goes into spasm, like this, trying to around the clot. And so this is and then also the heart muscle starts to suffer for lack of oxygen, and the heart attack pain is the muscle going into spasm from the heart muscle going into spasm. So I figure Uranus must be involved. This was not considered a constant in the constants in our published literature or in our courses. Okay. I had a series of 10 charts that I evaluated these 10 charts for all of these. And these were charts where I had the birth chart with a AA or an A time and the Astro Data Bank. And I also had a time for the event, so I could do progressions. And for each of these items, Leo, our Sun, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, and Uranus, for all 10 charts, all 5 items were prominent in the birth chart. And this is according to our rules of prominence, where the planet is either in an angle or it makes aspects to the sun, moon, or Mercury. There's some other less common occasions, like if it's involved in a very close configuration with another planet, or it's the highest planet in the chart, a few. But for what I used, the basic thing I used for these was, is it in an angle or does it make aspects to the sun, moon, and or Mercury? So for all 10 charts, each of those 5 items, right? The planet, they were prominent according to our rules of prominence. Each had discordant aspects natally. In other words, they had discordines. They usually also had harmodines, right? So, but they had discordines, and they all had progressed aspects at the time of the event. That's all 5 factors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of it all fit all together. Okay, so that's 10 charts. I actually had a collection of 22 charts, and so I dug deeper into specifically into Uranus in all 22 charts, right, to get a bigger sample there. I'm sort of exploring for this class. I'm exploring Uranus, and for this is an innovative contribution here. So I thought I'd study it more deeply. So this is a total of 22 charts. Okay, a detailed study was made of Uranus for rules of prominence, discords to Uranus in the natal chart, and progressions to Uranus at the time of the event. Now I'm going to show you this PDF in a minute. All 22 charts had Uranus prominent. They were all, it was in an angle or aspecting the sun, moon, or Mercury, okay, in the natal chart. All had at least one discordant aspect to Uranus in the natal chart, and many had more than that. And all 22 charts had a progressed aspect to Uranus. Of those aspects that were present at the time of the event, 16 of the 22 were discordant progressed aspects. 4 of them were neutral, like a quincunx, right? And 2 of them were harmonious events, where a harmonious aspect actually was present at the time of the event. This is what you see this frequently in our medical literature. We'll say, Zane will say, right, okay, they were progressions at the time, usually discordant, right, is what he says. And so we see the same pattern. Sometimes harmonious events can release a stored up discordant potential, right, because it will give an aerial, it'll give a connection between those two. And then, okay, so I'm going to actually, do I have this? Yes, I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to go a little more into detail into that. And I'm going to, oops, that didn't work. Show this, start share again. We look at these in a little bit more detail. This is Uranus and heart attacks. This is the 22 charts, okay? And I color coded these. Right? If it met the rules for prominence, This is Uranus, specifically just Uranus in these charts. If it met the rules for prominence, I colored it gold right there. 1, 2. You'll see here down there's every single one of the 22 charts met the rules for prominence. For instance, Uranus is parallel to the sun, sextile the moon, and square Mercury, prominent. Right? Angular, parallel moon and Mercury, prominent. Quincunx the sun, opposite Mercury, prominent. Right? These are according to our basic rules. I also I'm included here because I'm really investigating, like, I realized with medical astrology, we can't just use astrodynes, right? That we have to keep our basic things like rules of prominence. So I was looking for, well, this person has the evidence that this is prominent with having a spasmodic event like that. But then the astrodynes, you see, if an average astrodyne, if they were distributed evenly, they'd all be 8.3. Right, 8.3%, right? Each one would have 8.3% of the power times 12. That would be all your things. So here, the astrodyne power, this is prominent, but the astrodynes are not even at average level, right? Arthur Ashe, astrodynes not even at average level. In fact, almost none of them. Oh, here I colored them blue if they were above average, right? One, Ernie Banks has an astrodyne that would make you think the planet might be prominent, right? And here you go down here, there's all very few of them. You get a bunch in a row at the end there, but I think only 5 of the 22 was the astrodyne above average at a time when our normal rules of prominence indicated that it was prominent. Okay, and so here you can see the pattern. If here's natal Uranus and a progression to Uranus, right? So I colored these red if it was discordant. So you can see here she has prominent Uranus with discordant natal and progressed aspects, right? The next one, prominent with discordant natal aspects, right? Usually, here is sometimes they're neutral, like a quincunx to a neutral planet. So these two, it's discordant natal, the progressed is neutral, but there's a progression, right? So, okay. And then here, it's the same pattern in all of them, prominent, discordant aspects, prominent, discordant, or neutral aspects. And sometimes there are also harmonious aspects, right? Now, these are all aspects, these are just aspects from Uranus. We're still focusing on Uranus. Come down here, we have occasionally, we have, see, usually there'll be a harmonious one, but there are also discords. Here is, I think there's one down here, Otis Chandler had only harmonious. One of the 22 charts has only harmonious progressions releasing the event, okay? And this one, Dick Cheney has one neutral. P Uranus is parallel sun, and P Uranus is sextile the moon. So this follows the pattern that we see it in the Church of Light lessons. The progressions are not always discordant, right? But there is always a discordine. There are always discordines in the natal chart for these diseases. Okay. Okay. Go back to our slideshow. And I think we already have it here. Yeah. Share. I have appear to have lost our meeting. I can't find our meeting on here anywhere. There we go. Am I still on here? Yeah, okay. Oh, I see. What are you seeing on the screen? Are you all seeing Uranus and heart attacks on the screen? You are? Oh, great. I don't have to change anything. Okay, that finishes the heart attack section. Here is Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, we know it's a neurodegenerative disease. Some parts of the brain start to degenerate. It's progressive. Once it starts, it doesn't appear to stop. And the symptoms, there can be symptoms of paralysis and a tremor, nervous tremor, and it can progress to complete disability and unconsciousness, and a person can die. I had only 6 charts that I could find for this. So this is a kind of a new disease. So my suspicion, right, knowing it from a medical point of view, this is a disease of the brain. So we're looking for Mercury, and also we may find for brain issues, we find Aries and its ruler Mars are possible rulers of the brain, brain in the head. And then, but because Parkinson's is characterized by tremor, I'm looking for an involvement of Uranus, and then Neptune for paralysis. Also Neptune, this is just a strange disease. They don't know what causes it, right? They don't know why it happens. And yeah. So I had 6 charts. These constants had discordant aspects in the natal chart, and they all had a progressed aspect to each constant at the time of the onset or diagnosis of the disease. So this was all for Mercury, Aries or Mars, planet in Aries or Mars, Uranus and Neptune were all natally afflicted and active by progressions at the time of the onset. Here we have for Uranus and Parkinson's. I did a little more detail on Uranus, focusing on it very specifically for prominence. And all 6 of the people with Parkinson's, they all 6 had Uranus prominent, being in an angle or aspecting the sun, moon, or Mercury. Okay. 5 of the 6 had a natal discordant aspect to Uranus. 1 of the 6 had no natal discords. It had a harmonious aspects to Uranus, many, but no natal discords. The 5 charts with discordant aspects all had an aspect with discordines between Uranus and Saturn. It was like Uranus opposite Saturn, Uranus square Saturn, semi-square Saturn, etc. And so for future research, we'd like to get a larger number of charts and see if that's definitely a constant, that Uranus, Saturn aspecting Uranus. It was true in the 5 of the 6 charts here. And they were, well, of course, unless you have a trine or a sextile, any Saturn aspect is discordant, right? So there's no neutral aspects with that. In all, also, I saw in this, in all 6 charts, Uranus aspected the first house, either by aspecting the ascendant or a planet in the first house. That's this is a pretty bad typo there. We'll fix that before we release this into the wild here. I can probably give, I think I can pull up a chart, one of these charts of somebody with Parkinson's. Let's see, window. Here we go. We can bring this one over here. I think we can. This is, you all see Billy Graham's chart there on the screen? Is it there? Can you see it? Okay, good. I can't tell from my screen what you guys see, so that's why I have to ask. So yeah, Billy Graham. Let's see. What about Uranus there? These Uranus is just a minute. We can might as well pull up the natal aspect grid there. Is as the Uranus is over here alone. It's the only planet over here. This tends to make you think of prominence, right? But it isn't the normal thing. The only one on this side. But over here, Uranus is square to the sun, sextile the moon, square to Mercury. So it's prominent by that determination. Okay. And then as far as discords, it's square to the sun and square to Mercury. And over here, this is this opposite to Saturn. Okay, opposite to Saturn is appears to be one of the characteristics, and it also is semi square to the ascendant. And these were what I found in each chart, at least each that had a discordant aspect Uranus had a discordant aspect to Saturn, and there was a discordant aspect to the ascendant or a planet in the first house. This is something I don't see a lot of that in the Church of Light research, where they were looked or assessed. I don't know if they even evaluated for whether the particular discord had an aerial into the first house, which would be the body, right? So it appears this is a small series. This is only 6, so you can't reach a definite conclusion. I'd love to have 20 and see if the same pattern held there. Okay, and then yeah. So this is semi-square to the ascendant. It's opposite to Saturn. It's prominent in the chart. It has tie-ins to the moon, the sun. I'm sorry, it's tie-ins to the moon, the sun. I'm sorry, the sun, the moon, and Mercury, and so here this is it appears to be a constant for this disease. We have who else do we have here? I think I have Muhammad Ali, the great boxer. Aspect grid. What you find is Uranus is prominent in the 10th house, high in the 10th house, conjunct Saturn, right? And this was the pattern I saw in the charts. There was an aspect of Saturn to Uranus in this disease. It's prominent through trine to the sun also, and I'm sorry, trine to the sun. Okay, the other things we're looking at, it's conjunct to Saturn, Uranus, and it's also square to the ascendant. Okay, so okay, let me do this here. Yeah, this is what we found. 5 of the 6 had natal discordant aspects to Saturn. The 5 with discordant aspects, they were discordant aspects to Saturn, specifically Uranus and Saturn, not just a discordant aspect to Saturn, discordant aspect between Uranus and Saturn. And in all 6 charts, this was the aerial into the first house. And I have to say, I'm going to start looking at this more closely with some of the other conditions if there isn't a first house connection. They aren't always that easy to see at first glance when you look at a chart, because it might be to the ascendant, or it might be to the planet ruling the ascendant, or it might be to a planet in the first house, which might not even be in the same sign as the ascendant. So so this is what I found here with Parkinson's. Here, the next one is seizures. This is I had 8 charts of people with epilepsy. Excuse me. And they had epilepsy and seizure disorder. The planets we were evaluated for is epilepsy. Well, this is Mercury for the nervous system and the brain. Aries, Mars for the head and the brain. Uranus for the seizure, the sudden seizure, right, would be the Uranus type spasm. And then also Neptune for the loss of consciousness. And so indeed, we looked at these. All the planets had Mercury discordant in the natal chart. They had a discordines to it. They may have had harmodines also. They all had an Aries planet or Mars prominent and discordant. Okay, and Uranus was prominent and discordant. Okay, all charts had Neptune prominent in the chart with a discordant natal aspect. This was something I didn't expect initially. I just kind of checked it out because, well, seizure, you lose consciousness. I wonder if Neptune's involved in that. But it was the prominence was quite clear with Neptune prominent, every single one. Neptune was distinctly prominent. Okay. The actually time of the event was available for 5 of those 8 charts. And in all of those, a progressed aspect was present for each of the constants. That meant Mercury, Aries or Mars, present for Mercury, for Aries or Mars, for Uranus and for Neptune, the progressions were all present for those at the same time. And this is my my presentation. Why don't we look at some charts of for seizures? This person, yes, this person died of a seizure. So no, natal aspect. Okay. Person died of a seizure. Where do we see Uranus? Well, Uranus in the 6th house, but it's actually within within the degree of the descendant. It's within the degree of opposite the ascendant. So that alone could offer some prominence. We have other. It does also aspect Uranus by sextile and Mercury by semi-square. So I'm sorry, Uranus. Sorry. Uranus aspects the Sun by sextile and Mercury by semi-square. It's conjunct Mars. It can be an aggravating event for sure. And then it's opposite to the ascendant. Okay. So this is person has epilepsy. This person actually, he died of epilepsy. And he had, let's look at we mentioned the prominence that's Uranus we were looking at, but also Neptune here. Here's Neptune is high in the chart, high in the 10th chart, angular, high in the 10th chart. It's definitely a prominent planet in the chart. It's quite discordant to the constants for the brain and the nervous system. It's opposite to Mercury, Neptune opposite Mercury. Sesquiquadrate Mars aggravates the whole thing. Okay. And then Neptune over here has sextiles to Pluto in the ascendant. But okay. So all right. And then we could look. We have here some of the issues here. Saturn, Saturn conjunct. This is the brain. We have Saturn conjunct Venus in Aries, and so that Saturn, that Aries Saturn. This is the brain is a semi-square to the Sun, and square to Pluto, sesquiquadrate the midheaven. So there's discord in Aries. Mars itself is semi-square to Mercury. That's probably a major contributor to seizure disorder. In this case, sesquiquadrate to Neptune, one of our other significators. Okay, and opposite the ascendant, just brings it into the body there. Okay, so okay, that's an example. This other, I could do one more. I have one more sample ready to show. This woman died as a young girl. She died at 4 of seizure disorder. And we can look at, well, okay, where's Uranus? Well, Uranus is angular. It's in the 7th house. There's some prominence there. Okay, it's trine to the Sun, semi-sextile the Moon, square to Mercury. So it's tied right into the core of our lights. And so that's Uranus is prominent. While we're looking at prominence, we could look at Neptune also. Here, Neptune is close to direct opposite the ascendant. Now, this would not only be a weak position in the 6th house, but then it's also trine to the Sun. Square to the Sun and conjunct the Moon. So that definitely conjunct the Moon adds prominence. Okay, and then also it is opposite the ascendant, so it's involved there. So we have prominent Neptune. We can look here for our progressions. 26. We're looking for 26 or 11. We have a progressed Uranus is there's a trine to Saturn down there. Okay, what else do we have here? 26 or 11. Where's okay, well that must be the aspect to Uranus at the time. And then the I'm sorry, this is I haven't prepared this so well. Okay, Neptune wanted to say, oh, I remember the view. Sometimes you really find this in the declinations. Uranus is 13 there, and we have the progressed sun is parallel to Uranus birth and progressed. Okay, and also the progressed Uranus is parallel to natal sun. So that's sufficient to activate, that activates the Uranus potential. Neptune is 19. Neptune aspects Mercury by parallel there. Okay, so all right, and I think that's my class for this evening, and I'd love to have a discussion.
Should I continue recording or stop the recording?
We usually stop the recording, maybe close the meeting, and then have Q&A and discussion. Is usually how we do it.